Are you or someone you know looking to buy or sell a home? When you use a HomeGain Realtor to buy or sell a home, you can get $150. Visit homegain.com and click on the Promo 150 banner at the top of the page to get started. Compare HomeGain Realtors and choose your favorite. Complete your home purchase or sale transaction with a HomeGain Realtor, and HomeGain will pay you $150. Get started today by going to homegain.com. Welcome back, everyone, to Real Estate 360 Live. I'm your host, Ryan Sloper, joined today by my guest, Louis Cammarosano, the general manager of HomeGain. Quick reminder, Real Estate 360 Live is designed to build the Washington, D.C. Metro's housing and credit markets one house at a time. If you ever have any questions, concerns, or real estate needs, the best number to reach out to us, 877-245-2030. That's 877-245-2030. And remember, guys, that's an off-air phone number. If you call it, you'll get a voicemail. Just leave your name, phone number, contact information, and I will get back to you as soon as possible. So there was an interesting blog written by the KCM Keeping Current Matters blog, and the headline was, "Should I rent my house if I can't sell it?" And they kind of went through a lot of the questions that you should ask yourself if you're considering potentially renting your house out because you tried to sell it and you couldn't get the number that you needed to get out of it or break even, so you weren't bringing money to the table. And I want to kind of go through some of the questions because it brings up some interesting points. One of the questions was, how will you respond if your tenant says they can't afford to pay the rent this month because of more pressing obligations, like they've got to pay for their kids' daycare or whatever it may be that they can't afford to give you the rent for that month? What would you do? It's a good question because I always tell people when you're considering potentially renting your house out that you always need to be cognizant of the fact that you need to have some sort of reserve account to be able to even consider renting. Because if you don't, it just never fails that something's going to pop up and you're not going to be able to pay for it, whether it's your tenant missing a payment to you, whether stuff breaks in the house, appliances or whatever else, and you don't have a rainy day fund for that rental unit. Renting's probably not going to be the best thing for you. It really isn't. Now, I know a lot of people are like, well, it's not going to be that big of a deal. We can just rent it out, collect payments, and as long as we're breaking even, we don't care. But, you can still get into situations where you're losing money. One of the best pieces of advice that I can give is making sure that you're working with a local real estate professional that understands the rental market. All too much lately, Louis, I've seen that there's been a lot of homeowners that have chosen to try to rent their house on their own because they didn't want to pay a small little commission to a real estate agent to do it for them. And what I'm seeing is they're cutting themselves short like $300 or $400 a month in rent.
Because they don't know the market, and also they don't properly figure out the credit of the person that's going to be coming in. They also don't have the right lease because they're not sure whether it should be long-term, short-term, and they don't know the law about getting somebody out of your house if you do want to sell it, even if their lease has been broken. So it's a tricky one to rent out your house if you've never done it before. And then, of course, you're the handyman. You have to come and fix the things if they break. So, and also you have to consider, in some places, if you're in a condo, they might not even let you rent it out.
Right. And I was going to say that, there are a few circumstances. Condos, sometimes they won't let you in. Certain homeowners associations actually say that.
Right, even homeowners.
Yeah, they've got to be notified. Most of the time they'll still allow it. But, you bring up a great point because, the other option that you have if you're choosing to rent your house out on your own is you can potentially hire a management company which would handle most of this for you. Now, that's not there's not a set price, but I'd say, kind of universally across the board, a lot of the time the fee is about 10% of whatever your rent is. Now, why I say this is important, you're working with professionals, because if you just chose to rent that house on your own and you rented it for $1,500 instead of working with a professional real estate agent that would have said, hey, the market was bearing $1,900, guess what you could have done? You could have potentially rented your house for $1,900 and still hired a management company to take care of everything for you, and you just still had more profit than what you did when you were renting it out on your own.
Right. Now, here's a question for you, Ryan. Given that we've been talking about having that long-term mortgage is a good thing, there are some underwater homeowners that it makes sense, even though, to rent instead of selling while they wait for the price to appreciate back to the price that they paid for it or more, because over 30 years that will happen. And since they've locked themselves into a decent rate, a long-term rate, they can basically tread water while they're renting and eventually make it back. because they can go through a series of rent increases with their current tenants. So they may start somebody, last year or this year, but in a few years they'll be able to get that rent up past where their mortgage is, because their mortgage is going to stay the same if they've got that 30-year mortgage, or if they've refinanced into a 30-year fixed mortgage.
Yeah. Absolutely, and you know what we're seeing in the Washington, D.C. metro areas, in many cases, people are renting well above even what their current mortgage payment is. Now,
it's better.
Yeah, so even though they're upside down, they have a positive cash flow situation. So what I might advise some of those people, then if they don't need the extra money, they could always start throwing that down towards their mortgage to try to put them in a better position to where they can refinance at a certain point. Mm-hmm. So there's you have a lot of options there. And I think the most important piece of renting this house out is making sure that you're going to price it accurately. You're going to find qualified candidates, meaning that you're going to have a real estate agent, check the credit, look at the income, make sure they've got great rental histories that you can call their references. Many times when you're just renting your house to somebody else, and you're not going to probably go through all that, and
know the law. How do you get rid of a tenant?
Exactly, and a lot of the times
in your area,
which can be costly, and there's a process that is put in play. It's not as easy as people think to kick renters out of the house. It's not, because tenants do have rights too. Now, even though they weren't paying, their rights aren't as much as if they were, but it still can be difficult to get them out of the home. That's why I think it is critical, if you are considering going this route, it makes sense. And it makes sense for most people right now that, want to move on and maybe buy the home of their dreams at the low interest rates if they can carry both payments. One of the questions that comes up is that, okay, well, if I get somebody to rent my house out, then do I have to still count that mortgage payment against me if I go and try to qualify for a new mortgage? Right, Lewis? They're trying to figure out if they can basically, have two houses at once but not have to count their current home payment if they find a renter. The answer to that question is that you are going to have to count that payment against you until you're able to report that rental income on your tax returns. Okay? So that basically means that you're going to have a renter live in there for a full year so that you can actually put it on your following year's tax return so that you won't have to count that full payment against you. So that will, deter a lot of people from being able to potentially buy right now, because they're not going to have the amount of income they're going to need to be able to carry both mortgage payments, the new one and the old one, even though, on paper, they're going to have it rented out. But it's like they want to actually see it. Anything that you do in regards to loans now needs to be documented on those tax returns, because if you say you make $200,000 but your bottom line it says 50, they're not going to take the $200,000, unfortunately. And many people are bitter and don't understand it. And while I've been saying all along that I feel like they don't have the best underwriting practices, the banks just don't have an incentive right now to want to lend at the interest rate levels right now.
Right.
So you're going to see, the tightening is going to continue. Things are pretty bad right now as far as the guidelines, and it's hard for people to get a loan. It's only going to get worse, guys. It's only going to get worse. And the only way it's going to loosen up is for the interest rates to rise.
Correct.
And we don't see that happening anytime soon, Lewis, because we've had this artificial manipulation for an extended period of time. The Fed's already said that they have to keep interest rates low through 2014. So we're going to devalue the currency basically for the next 2 years. Interest rates are probably going to remain somewhat low, but your lending restrictions are going to just keep increasingly getting, tighter and tighter. So what that means is that if you're looking to buy, I would highly advise you sitting down with a professional that, can put you into a position to buy within the next year or 2 years. So if it's an income problem, then you need to get you need to be able to report more income to the government so that you can get a loan. Or if it's a credit score problem, you need to get your credit fixed and bring your scores higher to the point where maybe before they were 620, maybe now you need a 700. You can work on those things. You kind of have time to do that. Now, well, are prices going to increase? Is a lot of the people's questions. They're going to increase over time. Well, don't necessarily worry about those prices increasing, because whenever you're sitting down looking at whether you should make the decision to buy that home, you should be looking at what your overall cost of home ownership is going to be. What can you afford to pay monthly? And then you go out and try to find a home that's going to keep that cost at that point in time. Now, right now, it could be a $300,000 loan at 3.5% is going to do that. But for 2-3 years from now, it might be a $275,000 house is going to achieve the same thing, because it's it depends on where interest rates are at. But you can't worry about that until you get to that bridge. You have to cross it once you get to that bridge. End of the day, like I said, the interest rates are phenomenal. I just say reach out to a professional. 877-245-2030. It's 877-245-2030. Coming up on the end of the show, but guys, if you're starting your home search and you want to connect with an agent in your local area nationwide, Louis, where can they go to start their search and compare realtors?
Homegain.com. You can find a realtor. You can compare local real estate agents anonymously, whether you're buying or selling a home. You can check out home prices and home values. You can view homes for sale, new homes, foreclosures, apartments we even have now. You can check out apartments, and you can also check out our many surveys on where realtors and homeowners think home prices are headed, find out what the top 10 do-it-yourself projects are, and get some interesting information on whether you should go FSBO or realtor.
Great, Louis. I appreciate it.
.com, that is, right?
Yep, sure is. And you can also go to you guys have a YouTube channel where you post all of the shows that we have on there. So you guys,
you can hear Ryan's radio program there for the archives go back over a year and a half on the Homegain YouTube channel.
Perfect. I appreciate it, Louis. You have a great week. Talk to you soon.
Thanks for having me, Ryan. You too.
Thanks, guys. That's it for today's show. We'll be back again next week from 2 to 3 p.m. If you ever have any questions, concerns, please reach out to me at 877-245-2030. Thanks a lot, and have a great week.